Last Dance has gotten a ton of attention, the documentary on Michael Jordan. What was your general takeaways from watching it?
You really get a glimpse into the mind of, who Michael Jordan was and what made him so great. You get to see kind of how the Bulls were almost kind of like the Beatles in a sense, the Beatles of the league. That's something that obviously I never really got to experience because I was too young. When they were really on their run, I was 4 or 5 years old. So you understand who Michael Jordan is, how great he was as a player and all that stuff, but you don't remember all the fanfare necessarily surrounding it. Dennis Rodman might be my favorite player of all time now, but yeah, just overall it was interesting to see. I mean, really, I wish they could have dove even deeper into everything that went on, because obviously, you only have so much time in a 10-part doc.
Yeah, I saw a tweet about Rodman. Somebody said the first tweet was, if you want to know how good Dennis Rodman was, he had Michael Jordan chasing around Vegas to get him to come to practice. Right?
Exactly.
And then the other one was, you're telling me this man was, a multi-time NBA champion. He basically was doing drugs, drinking, going to WWE matches. Like, they laid out everything in the documentary, and and he still was, not even the best guy on his team, right? And you just kind of look at it. It's like,
crazy.
Look, and by the way, like, all that happens because there's no social media. Imagine some guy trying to do that today, right?
No, there's no way. There's no way. You would get eviscerated by, coaching staff, fans, media, all that. Like, there'd be no way, because somebody pull out their camera phone, and video evidence is a lot different than hearsay. Yeah, that's not even possible now.
I mean, I'm just imagining. Like, I was watching it, and when he disappears after one of the games, right, and they find out he went to the WWE thing, I was sitting there saying, like, imagine today if a player just disappeared. Right. And everyone's like, where is he? You would have fans going nuts all over social media. Like, it'd be a global manhunt to find the player.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, he'd be found because he'd be walking through an airport, whether it was private or not, and somebody would snap a picture and be like, hey, I'm in, Cleveland, Ohio, and I just saw Dennis Rodman. And everybody would be like, what the heck is he doing in Cleveland, Ohio? So, yeah, it would be over quick.
Yeah, and then what's your take on? I saw like Horace Grant, I think Scottie Pippen, a couple of guys were unhappy with how the way the documentary was put together. Yeah. Like, what's kind of your takeaway from that?
I mean, I think the Scottie Pippen one actually kind of caught me off guard, because if you look at the way Michael Jordan talked about him, he basically said, like, I don't win without you, and for somebody that is notorious for being extremely hard and unforgiving and holding grudges and outrageously competitive, for him to basically say, like, hey, I needed Scottie. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want him on the team. I needed him on the team. That's a huge compliment. And then, the other stuff that went down, I mean, a lot of that was Scottie's decision. So, I don't really have too much to say on the Scottie front. On the Horace Grant front, I can see how that was tough. They blamed him for snitching effectively. But, one of the things he said was that for the guy to publish the story, he needed 2 people at minimum to corroborate the story. So he said, forget the fact that, 1, I'm denying that I ever said anything. But 2, if he needed 2 people, it couldn't have only been, math says that, like, it couldn't have only been me. So, like, how are you guys solely pinning this on me? There's got to be somebody else. So I could definitely see why Horace Grant, felt a certain way. The Scottie thing is, maybe it's personal or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know those guys, but I can't begin to comment on that.
Yeah. My 2 favorite parts of the entire thing is, one, the Steve Kerr story where they get into like the fist fight or whatever. And it just showed, like, one, I think Kerr understanding, like, hey, if you stand up and basically back it up, Jordan will respect you. And I think that's kind of what Scottie, like, he just saw him over and over. And then 2 is the security guard with the Jerry curl, man. That dude's all the time.
Oh, yeah, nah. His Jordan shrug was crazy. Crazy.
And like, I guess part of it, as you're watching, like, how much of the behind the scenes stuff, right? So literally we see Jordan, like, throwing quarters with security guards before the game. I'm assuming that a lot of that is they pull the best parts, right? And put it into a documentary. But, like, is that the general atmosphere before the games for players in the locker room? Or did you feel like that was like, oh, that must have been fun in the 90s because we're not doing any of that type of stuff now?
Well, not necessarily shooting quarters, and as of now, people don't really have their own personal locker rooms away from the locker room. But in terms of the banter and the joking and, that type of stuff. Yeah, that's definitely consistent in the NBA locker room. You got to remember, like, these are 15 highly competitive guys who are about to, kind of go to war in a sense. You don't want to be on all the time. You want to be on, an hour, 2 hours before the game up until the game ends. But when the game does end, especially after wins, you want to kind of be able to turn off. And, so in those moments, you're definitely going to see more quarter type of atmosphere and guys laughing and joking with each other.